We are Matt and Katie Glafcke.
And we are Catholic missionaries.
Our call to missions began actually when we first met. I met Katie when we were both 17 years old. And we both had actually come off of our own short-term mission trips. I had gone for a month and a half to the Dominican Republic, and Katie had?
I had been in Quito, Ecuador, and I had a little bag that I was wearing that night.
Yes, and upon first meeting her, I was really excited to get to know who she was, and I saw this bag. And at the time, the bag was quite fashionable, and so in all my wisdom of a 17-year-old boy, I was trying to ask her a very in-depth question about the bag, and I said, "Where did your bag come from?" And I thought she had two options really to go there. One being that my grandma gave me this bag, or I actually went to a place and got this bag.
And I had been in Quito, Ecuador on a mission trip, and for the next hour or longer, we just talked about our experiences of encountering the poor and how our hearts were really changed in that. And so eventually we started dating, and we dated for about 4 years. We got married just before we graduated from college in 2006. And we always had it on our hearts that we wanted to go back on mission, but we kind of had it in our mind that it was just going to be a mission trip, some kind of short-term trip that we would take together as a couple or as a family, because our family started growing pretty quickly.
And so we always thought that it would be, something that would just work out in right timing, whether that was, taking the whole family with us, and we want to make sure that each of the children would have some type of special experience. So we're like, all right, well, let's just wait until the youngest one is at least 3 or 4, and then everyone will be able to get something out of it. And that never happened.
No, it didn't. And in the end, we really started just saying some small yeses at our parish and getting involved in ministry there. And so one of the first things we started saying yes to was a small discipleship group. We were trained to be facilitators for small groups and started receiving spiritual direction regularly.
And actually at that meeting, which Katie had somewhat tricked me into going to, she said, "I think we need a couple more men in this fellowship committee." And I was like, okay, I guess, as long as you get somebody to watch the kids, I'll come with you. And that day, that first meeting, we went around to each of the participants, and everyone was just giving this very emphatic yes, just oh yes, I totally want to do this. I know exactly what this means. And I was like, no. And I was like, but I'm open. I'm open to this. I'm open to seeing what this will do for us. I'm open to seeing what this will do for our life.
So that was about 2 years ago, and we went through the training, and we discerned that we each wanted to start different small groups. And he started a small group for men, and I started a small group for women.
And as we were just journeying along with these fellow parishioners, these fellow Catholics, we just asked them, to further their heart for the Lord. Just read the Bible, obviously, have daily prayer, and just have somebody who's helping you grow in faith. Somebody that you could walk with hand to hand, somebody you can talk about the things that are going on in your life. Just any of the things that the Lord was doing in your world, give that to another person, share that faith, and share that experience. And that really just opened so many more doors for us.
Yeah, but the one problem was that we always had to alternate with who's going to stay home with the kids, and then sometimes we even did things as a couple, but again, we still needed someone to take care of the kids when we did ministry as a couple. And at that time too, our kids were getting kind of pulled in different directions with their different interests and talents, and suddenly I felt like we were at a crossroads where we could either choose to kind of just divvy up the calendar and go in 5 or 6 different directions on a weekly basis to try to satisfy everyone else's needs and desires, or we could look into something that could unify our family and bring us all together to serve the Lord.
And a couple years before this, actually, Katie had read in our Catholic Archdiocesan Herald about a family who had said yes to Family Missions Company, the whole family going. And Katie, like when she saw it, she finally was like, "This is it. This is what we're gonna do." And again, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, 2 years before we had said our smaller yeses, continuing to walk and journey. And she showed it to me. She's like, "This is what we're gonna do." And I said to her, "Good luck. I'll support you. You can take all the kids."
You thought it was just too crazy of an idea to sell everything you have and give up 2 years of your life to serve the Lord.
I just couldn't see it, obviously, in my smallness. I couldn't see it, again, in like that understanding, that plan that we had wanted for our family, that desire for me to control things, that desire for me to say, "Oh, when the kids are old enough, we'll definitely go. When, the finances are in order, when my business is just really taking off, I can take all this time. That's when it'll really fall into place." Well, again, Katie was talking about how it's like we just feel like we're getting pulled further and further apart, even though each of us felt on fire for the ministries that we were doing, for the people that we were encountering, for the amount of the increase of grace and mercy and joy in our walk with the Lord. But it felt like we were walking in different directions. And yeah, we would be sharing all these things together, but it was just like, "Oh, well, what are you doing? Oh, what am I doing? Oh, what are the kids doing? Okay." And it just really felt like we were just all over the place. And again, that's when Katie brought up, she's like, "What do you think of this family missions company again?" And I was like, "You know what? Like, if this has really been on your heart for a long time, I think we should definitely look into this. You know what? Like this is something that you've prayed about. This is something that now it's starting to make more sense for me." I said, "You know what? I'm really busy right now. How about you call them, Katie? Like, you really, you're jazzed for this. You know exactly all the questions you want to ask. You just call them up and see what they say, and we'll definitely dig in deeper then."
So I called, and I emailed, and I called, and I emailed again, and I got no response.
And so literally after about 3 weeks, Katie's like, "I don't think this is a way forward. I don't think anymore." And watching that, that desire, that passion kind of fade as it was so vital in her life. So that call was so real. I was like, "Oh, this shouldn't be. This shouldn't be." And so finally, I was on my way to work. I was like, "You know what? I've got a ride. I'll just call them up. Clearly, no one's at the office. Clearly, this place, I don't know, maybe it just doesn't exist." And so I literally dialed the number. And there's no ring. And all of a sudden it's just Family Missions Company. This is Emma Grace. And I was like, what? I didn't think there were people there. I was like, I think my wife has some questions for you. But let me call her back and let her know that you guys actually exist. So I hung up the phone. I called Katie. I said, the phone didn't even ring. The person answered right away. "I don't know what you're talking about. They're clearly there." And so I asked her, I'll call them right back, maybe give them your number, but just give me a couple questions to ask. And so I called Emma Grace back, and she answered, and she just had an answer to all of my small queries. And I handed that back to Katie. And that really got the ball rolling with Family Missions Company. And so we finally found out that, they have this retreat called Come and See. Well, every single one of the dates they had for this upcoming year, this was probably about February of 2018. So very, very recently. They were like, "Oh, you can come to this Come and See. You can come to this Come and See. We've got so many Come and Sees. There'll definitely be a date that works for you." And we literally looked at all of them. And we said, "None of these work for us, and we are so sorry, and we don't want to be these people, but can you make a special date for us?" It just felt so forced. But when we asked them, they said, "You know what? Absolutely, you guys can come whenever you're available. We'll make this whole program work just for you."
Yeah, so we pulled the kids out of school and came down the first weekend in May. And almost instantaneously, as soon as we arrived here at Big Woods, it felt like home for each and every one of us. There were small consolations. That very first night, actually, we had dinner with Alicia in the big house, and she was telling us, here in this community, we finish our prayers by saying, "Amen, Alleluia, Glory." And our youngest daughter, her name is Gloria, and we call her Glory. And she just thought it was the coolest thing that every time we pray here, that we say Glory at the end.
And the following day, we went out making some house visits, and our second daughter, Corinne May, was just this very observant child, and we went to literally just go share the gospel of the week with
Miss Glindy and Mr. George.
Mr. George. And we just read with them and we shared with them in their very humble home. And our daughter Corinne is she's very observant, and she's looking around the room and seeing all these things and noticing all these imperfections, or so I thought. And we had spent maybe a 45-minute visit with them, and they called our youngest, Daniel Thomas, they called him Pope Daniel. Oh, don't worry, this little Pope Daniel, he'll be Pope one day. We're like just laughing and we're rolling. And we depart from them and just say our goodbyes and our God blesses. And we walk out the door, and like literally before the screen door closes, which, you know, obviously it's not that much of a sound barrier, Corinne looks up at us and we're like, oh gosh, what is she gonna say? And she looks up at us and she says, if that's what missionaries do, I want to be a missionary. And we're just like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what we're called.
Yeah, so that weekend we turned in our application, and we were ready and willing to start as soon as possible.
Ready and willing. Even though Kevin and Sarah gave us the how not to want to be a missionary talk, we handed in our application and had left on a Monday or something like that, and they said, you know, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to process the application. We'll get back to you shortly. You know, we'll definitely be in touch. And so we just left, you know, on cloud nine, thinking this is it. Like, this is the right time. This is the right place.
Yeah, we were just filled with the greatest peace.
Just peace beyond understanding, right? Like this grace just washing over all of us. And we get home, and like 3 days later, I get a call from Kevin, and he's like, "Oh, we got to talk a little bit." And I was like, "Okay, well, you know," he's like, "We still haven't processed your application, but there's a lot of people who really want to come and be missionaries this year, and so, you know, we'll get back to you on that." And I was like very perplexed by like what this phone call meant. I was like, "Well, thanks for reaching out. Like, we literally just saw you. You could have kind of told us that when we were there." So I was like, "What's happening?" And within like the next 2 days, he sends this very long email. And like, I'm just reading it, and I was like, okay, like I get it. Like, there's all this fine print, and we're giving our lives away to Jesus. Like, we're turning our lives upside down. Like, I'm okay. I was like, we're ready to say yes. And at the very end, he's like, we know that the need is urgent, but this year's intake is filled up completely. And even though we process your application, you'll have to wait for 2019. And like, I read that over again. And I was like, no, like, this is wrong. Like, we know this is right. We hear this call from God. We hear this call, and all of these consolations from Katie to myself finally coming to the light, and all of our children were like, this is wrong. Like, I don't know what he's doing.
So in the end, we met with our spiritual director, and he recommended that we start praying a novena to Our Lady Undoer of Knots. And so as a family, every night we started praying this novena, and we finished the novena on a Tuesday night, and Wednesday morning I called Kevin, and he was in a meeting. So he just texted me right away, and he said, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back.
Yeah, and Katie said to me, oh, well, he's just in a meeting. You can just wait, and we'll talk to him together. And I was like, I can't wait for this anymore. I gotta go. So I up and went. I left, and I left the work to Katie.
Yeah, and Kevin called, and he said, I apologize. It's been a few quiet weeks on our part, but we've been sorting through things, and there were actually 3 families ahead of us in order to come into intake this coming fall. And he said, just this morning, the 3rd family called, and they're not ready or able to start this fall for intake. And so there's a spot open for your family if you're still interested. And I just screamed, yes, of course we are. And it was just, it was the answer to all of our prayers.
Yeah, and so, Katie called me, and I was just like, what? Like, of course this is going to happen. When we did really want this, and we felt God was calling us to this, and now, though, like, there were, 3 months left to do everything, to close up shop, and to get the family ready, and to get the house in order.
And find mission partners.
And clearly, if this was on us, if this was only our endeavor, it would have been an absolute failure. And so, we, put the house up to rent, actually, just because we're like, look, we don't even have time to like pack up all our stuff, let alone make sure we can sell this house. And like everyone we know, like, oh, well, you know, just put it on Facebook or put it on Craigslist, and you'll rent it out in like a week. Like, this house is amazing, or whatever. And we're like, okay, well, you know, if that's all we wanted to do, then that's what we would do. But we're like, you know what? I think God has bigger plans. Like, He waited until the last minute to get us through this door. Like, we can trust Him even more now.
Yeah, we were just kind of waiting for the right family to come along, and lo and behold, they did. And they ended up moving in the very day we were leaving for intake. So the Lord really has provided for us, and we are excited now to start our first year in Haiti.
And this whole trip, this whole call to missions, as murky as it is, it's kind of, you know, just cutting through these dark waters, and hearing Jesus say, you know, come walk with me. And each step we take, we go and journey closer to Him. And He's been with us every step of the way. So right now, you know, we don't know what that looks like, but we know that He will be with us. We know that we'll be holding His hand. And that gives me the greatest joy.
Yes. All right. So we have
Glafcke family clan, and this is Josephine Teresa. She's 12.
This is Corinne May. She's 10. Mallory Joan just turned 7. Gloria Grace
and 4.
And we have Daniel Thomas, who just turned 1.
And we
are Catholic missionaries. Thank you.